Good evening, welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're with me, this is Kapuge, bringing you the latest for News First, where we are and always will be with the people. Let's start off by taking a look at your top stories for the day.
Social media is a major problem. President tells media secretaries.
විද්‍යුත් මාධ්‍යයෙන් මුද්‍රිත මාධ්‍යයෙන් පමණක් නෙමේ විශාලම ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ සමාජ මාධ්‍යය. හොඳයි නරකයි දෙකම වෙනවා.
Activist detained under PTA released. Wasantha and Galvevatero remain in detention. Recover the money looted from scams before increasing taxes. Opposition leader tells parliament.
කරුණා කරලා ඇන්ටි කරප්ෂන් ක්‍රමවේද තුල ගසා කාපු සල්ලි ටික අපි නැවත ලබා ගන්නට ඕන.
Supreme Court permits the examination of petitions filed against bankrupting the country. Port Tour MP raises privilege issue against Dr. Harsha De Silva. Tourism Director General transferred. State Minister Diana Gamage left in the dark.
මට කිසිම බලතලයක් දීලා නැහැ. විශයක් දීලා නැහැ.
Now in your top story, Sri Lanka's Supreme Court today sent a powerful message that it is prepared to directly intervene in the country's dire economic crisis and hold those responsible to account.
A five-judge bench of most senior justices of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, led by its Chief Justice, granted leave to proceed against former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, former Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa and 36 other very senior government officials. This is relating to the fundamental rights petitions filed seeking an immediate inquiry into those responsible for the bankruptcy of the country and the people by adopting reckless economic decisions without proper assessment. Other former and present officials named as respondents include the entire former cabinet of ministers, current Foreign Minister Ali Sabri, who was formerly Finance Minister, former central bank governors Professor W.D. Lakshman and Ajit Niwad Cabral, as well as former Finance Secretary S.R. Artigala, former Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara and members of the Monetary Board of the Central Bank at the time. The three civil society petitioners are Dr. Mahim Mendes, Dr. Atulasiri Samarakon and Dr. Nevis Moraes, and they requested the court to prosecute the respondents and also order the commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption to conduct investigations for prosecution. The other petitioners are former chairman of the Chamber of Commerce Chandra Jayaratna, swimming champion Julian Bowling and Jehan Kanagaratna. Accordingly, the bench ordered the Auditor General to conduct an audit and submit a report by the 30th of November in respect of the following. The decision made by the Monetary Board to set the value of the Sri Lankan rupee at 203 against the dollar and all matters connected thereto. The delay in seeking assistance from the IMF and all matters connected thereto. All matters relating to the settlement of the sovereign bond of $500 million on 18th January 2022 using foreign reserves, and an audit on the loss caused to the central bank by such payments. The court also directed that the present governor of the central bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, produce before the 30th of November 2022 copies of all communication and recommendations given to then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, former Finance Ministers Mahinda Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa, the Cabinet of Ministers, the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka, former governors of the central bank Professor W.D. Lakshman and Ajit Niwad Cabral, former Secretary to the Treasury S.R. Artigala by the central bank. Among the stellar cast of legal minds appearing in the case were Upul Jayasuriya PC with Vishwaka Piris for the petitioners in SCFR 195/2022, Romesh De Silva PC for the Monetary Board, Gamini Marapana PC with Navin Marapana for Basil and Mahinda Rajapaksa, Nerin Pillai PC and several others for the Attorney General. The bench comprised Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya and Justices Bhuvaneka Aluvihare, Murdu Fernando, Vijit Malalgoda and LTB Dehidenia.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa emphasized 20 important issues the president missed out in his speech to Parliament yesterday.
What is the government's plan for increasing its revenue? They want to impose more taxes. The money that was looted from all the fraud and corruption is enough to revive this economy. These scams include the sugar tax scam, garlic scam, coconut oil scam, gas scam, fuel scam and the coal scam. Why aren't we doing anything to reclaim that money? Why aren't you doing anything regarding the revelations made in the Pandora Papers? That should be added to the government's revenue. We must use anti-corruption procedures to reclaim the money that was stolen from us. We must recover the stolen assets using the United Nations conducted a valiant effort to stop fraud and corruption in Sri Lanka. Despite the courts stating over and over again they haven't even paid him the due salaries he is entitled to. It was then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe that fought fraud and corruption together with Shania Besekara back then. We believe President Wickremesinghe will do right by Shania Besekara. The opposition leader also emphasized that the president did not comment on the current state of education in his speech. Education has gone to ruins. They say schools have reopened, but the students are fainting in schools because they are malnourished. It was Ranasinghe Premadasa who initiated a program to provide lunch to school children. They stopped that a few years ago. Now they are boasting, saying that they are providing lunch for 1.1 million school children. But there are 4.3 million school children in Sri Lanka. There are kindergarten students as well. You can't just pick and choose when providing lunch to school children. We must provide lunch to all school children, and regardless of who opposes this, we must establish an English-based education system in Sri Lanka. We must give prominence to information technology. The president did not express any views regarding education. We are here to present the plan for education development. The opposition leader also made the following comments regarding the importance of protecting democracy. Democracy has collapsed as the government is suppressing the rights of the people with state-sponsored terrorism and even imprisoning the youth, exploiting the Prevention of Terrorism Act. We need to stop this immediately. We strongly oppose the burning down of houses. We oppose destroying the state and private property. And we do not condone the murder of Amarakirti Attukorala. Those were acts of terrorism. But you can't detain the frontline socialist members and the IUSF led by Vasantha Mudalige, accusing them of these charges, especially when you don't have any evidence against them. The whole world is telling us to put an end to this. That is what we have to say as well.
Prevention of Terrorism Act
Leader of the Janatha Vimukti Peramuna Anura Kumara Dissanayake made the following remarks regarding the president's speech as well.
We presented many proposals, but no one took over this challenge in a time of adversity. Some say he did, but he did not. He was the chosen one. On whose behalf did he do that? The Rajapaksa regime was pinned to the wall at that time. He was their chosen savior. We are ready to take over this challenge. Go for an election and let the people decide who should lead this country. He said some political factions are waiting to take power using corpses. This is a dangerous statement. Say it out loud. Tell us who wants to take power over corpses. How are we to overcome this crisis? We admit that not a single party or an individual can bring Sri Lanka out of this crisis. The people must gather around them to do that. They have to build trust in society and amongst the people. If that is the case, then we must go for an election and let the people choose their government. This is not a president that was elected by the people. This is a president who was elected by 134 parliamentarians to be their savior. He does not have the people's mandate. The only way we can overcome this crisis is by electing a government that the people believe in.
The World Bank has said that protecting the vulnerable in Sri Lanka is critical in overcoming the crisis.
The World Bank on Thursday announced that debt restructuring and the implementation of a deep reform program are critical for Sri Lanka's economic stabilization. The World Bank in its twice-year update said Sri Lanka's real GDP is expected to fall by 9.2% this year and a further 4.2% in 2023, underscoring the need for Sri Lanka to build resilience. The World Bank, in a statement titled "Unprecedented Shocks Rattle South Asia, Exacerbating Challenges and Dampening Growth," said, beset with Sri Lanka's economic crisis, Pakistan's catastrophic floods, a global slowdown and impacts of the war in Ukraine, South Asia faces an unprecedented combination of shocks on top of the lingering scars of the COVID-19 pandemic. Faris H. Hadid Zeros, World Bank Country Director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, said that protecting the vulnerable is critical as Sri Lanka fast-tracks deep reforms to navigate a deepening economic crisis. He said that this crisis calls for immediate action to protect the poorest and most in need, while also focusing on strengthening the social protection system. The World Bank highlights two key experiences of the Asian financial crisis as lessons for Sri Lanka. Firstly, the short-term measures needed to address structural weaknesses, buffers to mitigate external shocks and build resilience to future shocks. Secondly, critical policies to promote future growth.
In a surprising turn of events, MP Nama Rajapaksa was appointed as the chairman of the subcommittee for identification of priorities in short, medium and long-term national policy formulation. Nama Rajapaksa was nominated for the post by MP Sagar Karyavasam and the nomination was seconded by MP Ali Sabri Rahim. Let's now cross over to a short commercial break and come back for more news.
News First, main sponsor.
25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD, a trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, 25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
Welcome back to the news. Student activist Hashan Gunathilaka, who was detained under a 90-day detention order under the provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, was released by a Sri Lankan court today.
Gunathilaka is an activist from the Inter-University Students' Federation and he was arrested on the 18th of August 2022 following a protest in Colombo. He was arrested along with Venerable Gallavasiri Dhammathero and Vasantha Mudalige, the Inter-University Students' Federation convener. The Terrorist Investigations Department informed Tangol Magistrate Hemantha Pushpakumara that it did not have sufficient evidence to continue to hold Hashan Jeevantha under detention orders.
The Terrorism Investigation Department presented a detailed report to the court today. Investigations conducted for 50 days revealed that they did not have a single shred of substantial evidence to support continuing to detain Hashantha Jeevantha, and they proceeded in requesting the judiciary to release this detainee. A request was made to release his mobile phone, which was previously confiscated as well. Therefore, Hashantha Jeevantha was released from this court case by the Tangol magistrate.
නඩුවේ දෙවන සැකකරු හෂාන් ජීවන්ත කියන තැනැත්තා ගරුවත් තංගල්ල ගරු මහේස්ත්‍රාත්තුමා විසින් මුදා හැරනු ලැබුවා.
Venerable Gallavasiri Dhammathero and Vasantha Mudalige, the Inter-University Students' Federation's convener, have been in detention for exactly 50 days since they were arrested on the 18th of August this year.
විශේෂයෙන් කියන්න ඕන කාරණේ තමයි වසන්ත වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී සිටපු දබානේ ආදිවාසී නායකතුමන්.
Leader of the indigenous community Uruwarge Vanilatto has appeared for Vasantha Mudalige. On the 4th of October, an unofficial letter was sent to him claiming that Vasantha will be killed and not to stand up for Vasantha. There are postmarks in the letter which has come from Kurunagala dated the 1st of October, but there is no sender's name. So, there is concern over the safety of Vasantha Mudalige and Venerable Siri Dhammathero. When I visited him on the 3rd of October, I asked him if he was taken to Malwana and what happened there. He told me that he identified the place as owned by Basil. He is taken away blindfolded. He is my brother and I must look out for him. We have learnt lessons of attempts being made to fabricate evidence and then assassinate people along the way and portray it like an accident.
ඇක්සිඩන්ට් එකක් විදියට රඟපෑවොත් එවැනි දූෂිත පාලකෝ හිටපු ඉතිහාසයක අපිට පාඩම් තියෙනවා.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that social media carries positive as well as negative information, which is one of the major problems that the entire world is facing.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe made an unannounced visit to the workshop that was organized for the media secretaries of cabinet ministers, state ministers and governor.
I do not expect to comment at length here. I have spoken enough. Now it is time to convey the essence of my speech to the country. The program of the government has to be conveyed to the country. We are facing very difficult times and we must overcome this situation. If there is instability, it will not be possible. Unlike print and electronic media, currently we are all facing social media problems. It carries positive as well as negative information, which is one of the major problems. If you do not accomplish your responsibility, the whole country will face more problems. Nothing succeeds without publicity.
The 2022 GCE Advanced Level Examination and the Grade 5 Scholarship Examination have been postponed.
Sri Lankan authorities have decided to postpone the 2022 GCE Advanced Level Examination and the Grade 5 Scholarship Examination. The new examination dates are as follows. Grade 5 Scholarship, 18th of December 2022. GCE Advanced Level Examination 2022 on the 23rd of January to the 17th of February 2023.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian Anupa Pascual said the chairman of the Committee of Public Finance, Dr. Harsha De Silva, should be summoned to the Parliamentary Committee of Ethics and Privileges for questioning with regard to the conduct of the Committee of Public Finance.
The chairman of the committee had wrongfully called for an Auditor General's report on the coal tender as per the request of the minister without consulting the committee membership. The chairman of the committee had also included the names of the membership without consent to impose punishments on the procurement committee members using powers that he does not have. He had also conducted himself in a manner that disrespected the public officials summoned to the committee and sent a wrong message to the public. Further, the chair had summoned research institutes that benefit from the non-governmental organization to the Water's Edge Hotel on the 4th, 5th and 7th of October and conducted seminars for parliamentarians exploiting public funds. He even sent out letters summoning parliamentarians using parliament-issued letterheads. He obtained sponsorships from third parties and organized an event exploiting the name as well as the funds belonging to the parliament. He used parliament buses for transportation from the parliament premises to the Water's Edge. We must appoint a special working committee and investigate the matter immediately.
චෝදනාව තමයි මම මට නැති බලයක් ආවේශ කරගෙන කරාලු වරප්‍රසාද කමිටුවට යොමු කරන්න. පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න. ඔබතුමා සරකරාට කතා කරන්න දෙන්න බෑ.
Harsha De Silva මැතිතුමා.
Harsha De Silva actually does have a right, as he is the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, to investigate into how this country went bankrupt and corruption that takes place. Let him speak.
මේව පිළිබඳව පරීක්ෂා කරන්න එතකොට අයිතිය තියෙනවා.
දැන් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මුදල් කාරක සභාවේ
The chairman and the members of the Committee on Public Finance are working tirelessly to work towards the improvement of the level of productivity and transparency in state-owned enterprises. This is to put an end to this corruption. Go on, suppress and sling mud at these efforts. According to a request made by the minister, the matter was investigated by the Committee on Public Finance as the Committee on Public Accounts was not appointed at that time. We have no issue with that. Thank you, Mahindananda Alutgamage, for that explanation. I carried out this investigation, informing and obtaining permissions from all relevant parties, including the Speaker and the Minister. The COPE and COPA have been appointed now, and therefore you can conduct an inquiry from the COPE and COPA. So do that. I have no issue with that. I can't conduct this inquiry from the Committee on Public Finance. We only carried out the investigation from the Committee on Public Finance because there was an urgent request from Minister Kanchana Wijayasekara. We carried out this inquiry under the direction provided by you. Don't come here making a noise just because you got promoted to being a minister without knowing what you're talking about. Speaker, if they keep slamming mud at the chairman of the Committee of Public Finance, then there will be no one left to work in these committees. The standing orders are clear that when a privilege issue is raised, it should be raised at the Committee of Privileges. But does this matter concern privileges?
The Gum at the Door-to-Door program identified a plethora of difficulties experienced by rural Sri Lankans on day 3 of the program.
The Gum at the Door-to-Door program is operational in the Jaffna, Matale and Kalutara districts to identify the issues that have plagued rural Sri Lankans. This program is done together with the research team of the University of Peradeniya. The Andavala village is situated within the Naula Divisional Secretariat in the Matale district. This village is home to around 400 families and many of them depend on agriculture for survival. One of the primary issues faced by the villagers is that lack of proper road infrastructure. In addition to that, the shortage of fertilizer and fuel is an additional burden on carrying on with their lives. The villagers told Gammadda that they do not receive sufficient amount of seeds for their cultivations. The little harvest that they manage to reap becomes dinner for the wild elephants that encroach into the area. The Gum at the Door-to-Door team in Kalutara visited the villages of Alagoda, Thebuwana, Payagala and Millagasudumulla in the Dodangura Divisional Secretariat. The people living in the Devalakanda village have been severely battered by poverty. Many of these villagers are daily wage earners and the economic crisis has drastically impacted the level of work they get on a daily basis. The children in this village also go to school amidst the greatest difficulties. The area of Karavittu in Jaffna has over 250 Grama Niladhari divisions. Many of these areas do not have proper access to roads. The storm drain problem is also a severe issue for the people of these areas, especially during the rainy seasons. Another issue faced by the residents of these areas is the fact that they do not have access to clean drinking water. The Gammadda team also went door to door in the villages including Thunnalai and Alvai to look into the people's problems. Many of these villages have been battling poverty their whole lives.
News First with the people.
Let's cross over to another commercial break and come back for more news.
පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලෝන් ඉන්සයිට්. එස්ලෝන් ජීවයයි ජලයයි ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. Moving on with more news, Amnesty International said that the UNHRC resolution on Sri Lanka reflects the need for international scrutiny.
Amnesty International, in a statement on Friday, said that the UN Human Rights Council resolution upholds the need to maintain international scrutiny and seek justice and accountability in Sri Lanka. Amnesty International's Deputy Regional Director for South Asia, Dinushika Dissanayake, said the adoption of the UN Human Rights Council's resolution reflects the need for continuing international scrutiny on Sri Lanka. She said that it is a welcome step in the right direction, but more needs to be done. However, she said that the Council failed to respond to civil society demands for the establishment of an expert mechanism that could address the broad spectrum of human rights violations, including those arising from the serious economic and political crises that the country faces. The Amnesty International statement noted that the government of Sri Lanka should abide by the commitments it has made to the international community and ensure the effective operation of redressal bodies for human rights violations, such as the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, the Office on Missing Persons, the Office on Reparations and the National Authority for the Protection of Victims of a Crime and Witnesses, among others.
Venerable Walava Hanguna Vave Dhammaratana Thero, the chief in government of the Mihinthale Raja Mahavihara, revealed today that threats were made on his life.
As a member of the Mahasangha who advises leaders, I received death threats on Facebook because I spoke about the crisis we are about to face. They said I must be imprisoned. If I am killed, more like me will emerge. I said there are 2 presidents in parliament now. There are few in their old age coming back to the parliamentary seats. These people have not let go. They will not leave. The current president will not leave. Because they brought the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, the Parliament cannot be dissolved for 2 more years after the introduction of the 22nd Amendment. They will lose their pension if they do so. This country needs to be taken to the correct path. Politicians over the age of 60 must retire. Those above the age of 60 must retire because it is full of old people. They are making it a home for the elder. The lotus flower is a flower we use to worship Lord Buddha and spiritual leaders. They use that as a political symbol. Remove that symbol of the lotus flower. That is a curse.
The
Venerable Thero expressed his views at an event held in line with the Children's and Elders' Day.
The medical specialists of the Ministry of Health have written to the President requesting not to reverse the proposal on reducing the retirement age in the public sector to 60 years.
The medical specialists of the Ministry of Health feel that bringing down the retirement age of medical specialists to 60 years will not harm the health service or postgraduate medical education as claimed by lobbying group that is against the move. They said that though around 250 medical specialists are expected to retire, a fair number of specialists will be available to replace them. This includes 200 specialists who currently returned after completing overseas training, 525 specialists due to arrive in the country within the next 2 years after completing their training overseas, and 300 trainees who have completed local postgraduate speciality training with eligibility to cover up duties as acting specialists. They said that out of the 250 medical specialists who will retire, the majority are from subspeciality fields where there are enough specialists available at present in the country. They added that if any speciality is left with a storage, there is a provision for recruitment on a contract basis.
The people held a protest at the Liberty Roundabout in Colombo today. News First Mariam Gunivijaya reports from Colombo.
The government under the stewardship of Ranil Wickremesinghe, who's supposed to be a friend of the people. What are you doing after you became president? You used the Aragaleya. You use people like us, people like the IUSF, people like the Peretugamis, people like the FSPs who led the protests to come into power. After you came into power, you kicked them out, and now they are terrorists, they are arsonists, they are druggies.
You know, it's up to us to speak out. So I think this is not the time for apathy. This is the time for us to speak out, because the more we stay silent, the more enabled they become, the more encouraged they become, and we see gradually that things are beginning to return to business as usual.
2 presidents, 3 prime ministers and several political changes later, has the system really changed? Because the people are still here. Behind me are the people demonstrating at the Liberty Roundabout. They started off about a few months ago, demanding for solutions to the rising economic issues in the country. But today their demands also include freedom of expression and just human rights.
The protesters then read out a letter to the president.
A man with your legacy of failure, the Aragaleya has given you a unique opportunity. Thanks to the Aragaleya, you are finally the president of Sri Lanka. You're welcome. Stop using the PTA in an undemocratic fashion to crack down on protests and dissent, and show some humility. Use the parliamentary committee system to bring about accountability and enact meaningful people-centric policies that will lead to overall reforms. Commit to a timeline to repeal the 20th Amendment, restore the 19th Amendment, and submit a 21st Amendment to Parliament. Deliver accountability for May 9th and other attacks. Free everyone detained under the PTA and allow the people to voice their opinion free of fear and harassment.
We need to ask ourselves as citizens, is this the country we want to live in, where concentration camps are made, where people who have different opinions to the government are punished by the state? And the Bureau of Rehabilitation is still in the stage of a bill. We can still fight against it. We can still stop it from becoming the law.
State Minister of Tourism Diana Gamage revealed in Parliament that the Director General of Tourism was removed without even informing her.
The Director General of the Ministry of Tourism, Dhammika Vijayasinghe, resigned yesterday after she was being pressurized. Who doesn't want a woman to take up leadership? Don't women have equal rights? I'm not speaking today as the State Minister of Tourism, but rather as a woman. Why can't a woman remain in a position like that? I need an investigation into this.
ඒක ගැන මට පරීක්ෂණයක් ඕන. මොකද මෙතන වැඩ කරන හරිද? වැඩ කරන
මේ ගරු ඇමතුමිය ඔබතුමියට බලතල තියෙනවා මේක කරන්න. අපිට කියන්න එපා ඔබතුමියට බලතල තියෙනවා ඒක කරන්න.
දැන් ඔබතුමියට මේ හොටෙල් ස්කූල් එක හෝ මොකක් හරි එකක් ඔබතුමියට පවර්ලා තියනවද ගැසට් එකකින් මෙන්න මේකයි ඔබතුමියට තියෙන බලතල කියලා එහෙම පවර්ලා දීලා තියෙනවද?
මට කිසිම බලතලයක් පවර්ලා දීලා නැහැ. මට කිසිම බලතලයක් දීලා නැහැ. විෂයක් දීලා නැහැ. ඒක මේකේ ඉන්න ඇමති
මෙතුමිය ඉන්නේ ආණ්ඩුවේ. ඉතින් ඕක කතා කරන්න ඕනේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ඇතුලේ.
මේ අමාත්‍යාංශයේ
This was done without informing me, so I am saying that an investigation should be conducted, at least by the minister in charge of the matter, at least by the subject minister. I am saying this as a woman. I am not going anywhere.
මං කොයි පැත්තටද යන්නේ?
පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්න කියන එක ඒක අපි ස්ථිර කරනවා විපක්ෂයේ විදියට.
On Living Legends tonight, we take a look at the Special Forces Regiment of the Sri Lanka Army.
Sri Lanka Army. Living Legends.
Determined, dared and done is the motto of the Special Forces Regiment of the Sri Lanka Army that was established on 25th February 1997. The speciality of the Special Forces is that they undergo special training to become part of the 4 fully fledged fighting battalions. Special Forces personnel are well trained to overcome any obstacle that they may come across under any circumstance to achieve their target. The long-range reconnaissance patrol is key to carry out long-range deep penetration operations, reducing the operational capability of the enemy. With a view to rapidly move across different types of terrain and attack the enemy both during day and night, Sri Lanka Army's Special Forces Regiment comprises of a combat rider squadron as well. Nayaru on the eastern seaboard is home to the combat diving squadron under 2SF Regiment. With a view to acquire seaborne operations capability, the regiment was established as a combat diver team. The combat diving squadron is trained in underwater ordnance explosions, removal of water-based ordinances, long-range patrols, as well as search and rescue operations during a disaster. The combat diving training school in Nayaru, in addition to providing training to all other segments of the Sri Lanka Army, also provides training to the regimental special forces of the Sri Lanka Air Force. Combat diving skills and scuba diving techniques are trained at this training school. The combat diving squadron uses specially designed kayaks to easily access narrow waterways and reach their targets undetected and in silence.
Sri Lanka is among the top 10 friendliest countries to visit for 2022.
Sri Lanka has been ranked among the top 10 friendliest countries in the world in the 2022 Reader's Choice Awards. The Condé Nast Traveller revealed the most welcoming destinations from all 4 corners of the globe as voted by its readers. Sri Lanka has been ranked 9th, and here's the top 10. French Polynesia, Colombia, New Zealand, Thailand, Costa Rica, Botswana, Peru, Belize, Sri Lanka and the Philippines. The Condé Nast Traveller says that from children to the elderly, the people of Sri Lanka are known for their love of visitors and genuine desire to help.
BizFast.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka announced that Sri Lanka's trade deficit contracted in August this year.
Sri Lanka's trade deficit contracted in August 2022 as import expenditure declined year-on-year for the sixth consecutive month, while earnings from exports increased. Merchandise trade deficit declined to $264 million in August 2022 compared to $586 million in August 2021. The cumulative deficit in the trade account during March to August 2022 contracted to $3.899 billion from $5.507 billion recorded over the same period in 2021. Earnings from merchandise exports in August 2022 grew by 11.2% over August 2021, recording $1.224 billion. An increase in earnings was observed in industrial exports and agriculture exports, while a decline was recorded in mineral exports. Earnings from the export of industrial goods increased by 12.6% in August 2022 to $965.3 million compared to $857.4 million in August 2021. Total earnings from the export of agriculture goods in August 2022 increased by 6.2% to $254.2 million compared to August 2021, mainly attributed to the exports of tea. Export earnings from tea in August 2022 increased by 6.5%. Expenditure on merchandise imports in August 2022 declined by 11.9% to $1.486 billion compared to $1.687 billion recorded in August 2021. A decline in expenditure was observed in import of non-food consumer goods and investment goods, while an increase was recorded in import of food and intermediate goods.
Sirsa TV announces the official launch of Season 2 of the internationally franchised The Voice Sri Lanka at Stein Studios this evening.
The Voice Sri Lanka, that has been trending all over and has been mesmerizing audiences, is back again. Season 2 of the internationally franchised The Voice Sri Lanka was launched at the Stein Studios on Friday evening. At the same time, the sponsors of The Voice Sri Lanka Season 2 were introduced as well.
The Nobel Peace Prize has been jointly awarded to Belarusian activist Ales Bialyatsky and Ukrainian human rights organization Ukraine's Center for Civil Liberties and the Russian human rights organization Memorial.
The three winners will share the $900,000 prize money. The Nobel Prize will be officially awarded at a ceremony on December 10th, the anniversary of Alfred Nobel's death. Ales Bialyatsky, the head of Belarus rights group Vyazna, who was jailed last year, won the prize in the wake of historic demonstrations and a severe crackdown in ex-Soviet country. The 60-year-old was arrested in July last year on charges of tax evasions, a move that critics Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko saw as a thinly veiled tactic to silence his work. Ukraine's Center for Civil Liberties was established in 2007 to promote human rights values in Ukraine with the purpose of advancing democracy in the country. Russian human rights organization Memorial was established in 1987 by human rights activists from the former Soviet Union to expose the abuses and atrocities of the Stalinist era.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News here on TV1. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and have a good night.